Now, let's go to a real scandal here, not a manufactured one. The US intelligence breach that saw Israel's plans to strike Iran leaked to Iran. What can you tell us about this Pentagon leak? This seems incredible.
What we know is that it's very serious, that this is top secret information. There's essentially a war going on in the Middle East where everybody is waiting for Israel to respond to the October 1st ballistic missile attack, the largest ballistic missile attack ever. And we understand that the Israeli response is going to be significant. And we've also been told that it's going to be surprising. Well, at this time, the last thing that you want is for intel to be leaked, which could compromise the nature of the surprise. It could help, the Islamic regime in Tehran. It could undermine Israel. And it's frankly an embarrassment that the United States cannot protect, utmost secrets. It is good, though, I think, that Netanyahu has had a distrust for the Biden administration. And so what
Mm.
has been disclosed are not the targets that Israel will strike, but some of the military preparations involved in the Israeli strike, the kinds of weapons that will be used, for example. But one of the consequences of what appears to be a leak from the US government is that the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to trust the Biden administration even less. And so there will be less collaboration, there will be less intel sharing. I think that the lesson here is that the Biden administration can't be trusted. And I do believe that Netanyahu already knew that. This is an administration that has a history of being implicated with arguably Iranian espionage, at the very least,
Mm.
mishandling of important documents by pro Iranian government officials. And so, for a long time, there have been calls to not just get rid of the Iran envoy, Rob Malley, but his associates. And one of them is actually the presumed national security advisor of Kamala Harris. And so we don't know at this
That's
point who
frightening.
the leaker is, but it could be an embarrassment, not just for Biden, but for Kamala as well.
Now, you've written a piece for Newsweek explaining Kamala Harris's record on Israel. She has consistently, undermined, you could argue, the only democracy in the Middle East, called for weapons restrictions, voiced opposition to some of their counter-terrorism offensives. You argue that American Jews should not be voting for the Democrats, but we know the majority of the Jewish community in America does. How can that be when you've got these leftist college campus protests, you've got the squad within the Democrats, you've got just this anti-Semitic, certainly anti-Israel sentiment that's very strong in the left, and it has really institutional power. And yet you've got the American Jews, the majority of them are still backing the Democrats. This is something that I know is a topic of discussion amongst many in that community. Explain to me why you wrote the piece that you did for Newsweek.
American Jews historically do not vote on Jewish topics. They don't vote on international affairs. They don't vote on Israel. They don't vote on anti-Semitism. Most Jews are pro-choice. They support abortion. There are many issues in the Democratic Party that most American Jews support. This election is a little bit different, though. And the reason is that Israel has been struck by the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust. And what was even scarier to international Jewry wasn't what happened on October 7th, but what we saw on October 8th, where it turns out that this terrorist attack against 1,200 Israeli civilians, it turns out, actually had quite a bit of popularity throughout Western countries.
Mm,
And so there was a merging here of international affairs in terms of the October 7th attack and the sense of Jewish insecurity at home all the way in the United States. And it is hard for Jews. Jews are reluctant to change parties. It's almost a part of their culture, particularly the more Reform Jews, the more secular Jews. They are a very
mm,
strong voting bloc historically for the Democratic Party. And I do predict that that will hold. The majority of American Jews will still vote Democrat because they always have. However, her share of the Jewish vote will be the smallest in modern American history. And the reason why
mm,
is because Kamala Harris is seen as being pro Hamas. And she's seen as pro Hamas both in the Gaza Strip as well as pro Hamas on American campuses and in American cities. With respect to Hamas in Gaza, Kamala Harris is constantly chiding Israel and criticizing Israel for its counterterrorism response since October 7th. Her main focus has been to coerce Israel to stop the military campaign, which would effectively preserve Hamas. She has even opposed Israeli operations which have been remarkably successful, for example, in taking out the
mm.
leader of Hamas in Rafah. She told Israel very sanctimoniously that she had looked at the maps and it would be a big mistake
That's right.
to going into Rafah. And then at home, she has said very little about anti Semitism. She actually, her campaign is receiving funds from Soros, who is one of the main funders of the Antifada movement in the United States. And you contrast Kamala Harris to Donald Trump. Trump has been a very strong supporter of Israel. He moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He recognized Israeli rights in the Golan Heights. He pushed forward the Abraham Accords, which is very good for Israel and Arab countries. And at home in the United States, he has said, if you're a foreigner in the United States and you're burning American flags and you're threatening a global intifada violence and you're anti-Semitic, then there's no reason for you to be here at American universities.
Mac,
And
this is
so for
why it's
these
so
reasons,
incredible that they're very good reasons indeed, and yet you've got Trump is the one who's characterised as some sort of Hitler, the most pro-Israel president that we have seen. It's just incredible. Dr. Max Abrahms, thank you so much for your time this evening. Really appreciate it.
thank you, Rita.